Hi, race fans. This is Bull Butter, breaking hearts and cutting farts. You're listening to the Auxiliary Gate podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is episode number 250 of the Auxiliary Gate podcast. We were in a celebratory mode right before we came on, and believe it or not, as we were recording this, the news came in, and we'll talk about this in just a second. Let me make my introductions. Of course, Alan Schneider, who has been here for
Hello.
most of the
Mm,
250 episodes. Welcome, Alan.
yeah, probably 240-ish, I
And
would say, 240 or so.
248. And then Jeff Riggs is here, who informed me that he has known me for at least 4 years, which is kind of scary, but welcome, Jeff.
Yeah, you looked a little terrified this weekend when we had that conversation. When they asked us how long we'd known each other, I was like, "Oh, about 4 years or so." You looked like you'd seen a ghost.
Yeah, yeah, that was an eye opener, but that's how life is at my age.
Time gets away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get to the really bad news of the day. This is per HorseRacingNation.com. Jockey Robbie Alvarado dies at age 52 after a heart procedure. And we had heard that Robbie had gone to the hospital a few days ago and had surgery, and it was a success. And then suddenly this bad news comes in. Let me just highlight some of his career real quick. Alvarado won two Preaknesses aboard 2020 winner Swiss skydiver for Kenny McPeak. And then way back in 2007,
13? No, 2007. Curling, right? Curling.
Hmm.
On Curlin. Curlin also won the Stephen Foster, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, won a Breeders' Cup Classic. Following year, won the Stephen Foster, another Jockey Club Gold Cup. I know he won a Dubai World Cup in there somewhere as well. Leading rider at Churchill Downs for many years, considered one of the top jockeys in the area, really a top jockey in the country. Yeah, but Robbie Alvarado, I can't believe I'm saying this, is gone at the age of
Yeah.
52.
It's a shame, I'm 56, right? And that comes to shock. I've been following Robbie's career forever because before he came to Kentucky, he was like the man in Chicago. And so, I mean, he has, I don't know off the top of my head, I'm not looking at Equibase, but he probably has 4,000 career wins easy. Didn't he used to ride Mineshaft too, if I'm not mistaken? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
Yeah, Mine Shaft was Horse of the Year.
Hmm.
Neil Howard.
yeah, terrible news. It is just as we were getting re-recording and stuff. But I never met Robbie. Always wanted to have him on the show, but that's just awful. He was checked out, left the hospital. Everything was good to go apparently, but so I'm not really sure what happens. We just found out about 5 minutes ago. But yeah, he's been a mainstay on this circuit, in the Chicago circuit for God, 25, 30, 35 years, and Louisiana as well too.
Yep.
Yeah, I was shocked, guys, because we saw that post just yesterday, or the day before, where there was a picture of him. He was smiling, thumbs up, and they're like, surgery was successful and getting discharged and everything. So definitely shocking, but anything with the heart is just so scary, and it's just a reminder of how fragile life can be. So very sad news today for sure. And I mean, echoing your guys' sentiments, when I was coming up in the Louisville area and getting interested in horse racing, Robbie was the man at Churchill. That he was
Yeah.
one of those jockeys you look in the program and look to see who he's on. 'Cause, you take an extra look at that horse, and then of course recently he's been working in the McPeak barn and as a exercise rider, assistant trainer, and I know he's had a lot to do with a lot of Kenny's recent success with Torpedo Anna, Mystic Dan, all them. So yeah, sad news today for sure.
And then, of course, he had that big like comeback moment a few years ago when he, after really not having much success of late, he took Swiss Scott over to win the Preakness, right? That was
Right,
that
right.
was a that was a big deal. That was a big deal at that
I
time.
believe he's like top 20 all time in like wins or earnings or maybe both. Like
I
he's
don't doubt
definitely
it.
way up there. Yeah.
Sad news.
Okay. Well, I think it'd be a good idea if we just dedicate this episode, number 250, to the life of Robbie Alvarado, and we'll try to make it the best as we possibly can. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. Yep.
All right. Before we bring our special guest on, let's talk about. Well, let me ask you this: Is there a horse? We said last week we would try to do this as a special segment. Was there a horse over the weekend at Ellis Park you'd want to talk about? Maybe you had a bad trip.
Yep.
I've got 100, but I'm gonna narrow it down to one. 'Cause
I've
it's
got
Ooh,
one. I
I
bet
don't.
you guys know which one I'm going to pick because we were standing upstairs next to each other, and I was in pain watching the trip. It was Saturday, race one, Ingleboro. An
Oh yeah.
absolute nightmare trip. I mean, Martin Garcia probably felt like he was on a roller coaster riding that race. All kinds of trouble early and was still in the thick of things, honestly, between horses until being shut off again late. Might not have been able to get the job done from there, but if didn't have that early trouble, I think was definitely the best horse in the race. So split the pack, so it's just a lot better than that one's going to look on paper. I think should be tough next time with a cleaner trip and a maiden race.
Yeah, I'll let you go, CC, because I kind of forgot about this.
Well, I've got two, but I'll do one real quick. Let My People Go in the turf sprint on Sunday. I kind of like that
Mhm.
horse anyway. Broke from the rail. I thought maybe he would get a rail trip, but I'm not going to criticize Jockey too much. But he went from the rail to the farthest out path going around the turn, and in fact let the 12 horse out. The 12 somehow got between him and the inside horse coming around the turn. So instead of getting a rail trip, he was probably in the 5 or 6 path around the turn and was still finishing okay. He wasn't flying, but he was finishing okay. I think Mike Maker trains this horse. He'll be second off the claim, probably at Kentucky Downs. I hope he doesn't run in one of those 2 million, or well, they're not 2 million anymore, like $1.75 million sprint races. I hope he finds some type of allowance race for him or something like that, because I think he will be live AF, as the kiddies say. I'll give you one
Mhm.
more real quick. I'll give you a little bit of time, Alan.
Sure.
Windflower. It's another one. I picked her on top. Uh, Not a good trip. I'll save you the details. You can go back and watch it. Windflower ran was at the ninth race on Sunday, right after
Mhm.
right after that turf sprint. But Windflower had to wait behind horses at the top of stretch. When she did, she finally finished okay and really galloped out past the rest of the field after the wire. So I'm high on that filly. I like her a lot. I think that's another one that could show up at Kentucky Downs, and you might get a price on her because her trip's a little bit dirtied up.
Okay. All right. Well, I still don't have
Mhm.
one, so I apologize, but I'll just go with Ingleboro too. How's that?
Sounds good. We got room on the bandwagon over here, Alan. We were
Sounds
us in
good.
that race together, so I know you saw what I saw.
Yeah,
Okay.
and when CC did the Let My People Go thing, I thought he was quoting Moses or something right there. So, oh, it's a horse. It's an actual horse. Okay.
Well, you are on fire today. All right. And then real quick, we got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
How about over the last 249 or so, recommend a podcast?
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good. Well, there'll be very few. No, Farron Peterson and Sarah Hamilton together. That was a good one. That was one of our favorite ones. When Michelle Lovell was on with her best friend Mary Jo Ironman, that was a lot of fun. The first time we had Brian Hernandez on, I think we just started doing this stupid thing, and we started asking guests. We couldn't believe he said yes. It was so cool that he did. It was, and I always remember that about Brian. He did not have to do that, and since then he's been back 3 times. So and then again, probably from a thrill from a boyhood thing, is Tom Leach. We had Tom Leach voice the Kentucky Wildcats in Keeneland. So as a longtime Kentucky fan, and if you live around these parts, you know about Tom Leach. He's been the voice of Kentucky athletics for decades now. And like, once again, didn't have to do that. He was as nice as he could be. So those are just ones off the top of my head. There's a lot more, a lot of friends we've made along the way and stuff. And the
Mhm.
ones getting ready to come up here shortly. But yeah, those are ones off the top of my head. And I'll hand the floor over to you guys. Geoff?
Yeah, it's tough to pick one over 250 episodes, but we've had a lot of really good guests, a lot of really fun conversations. Um, I will never forget the conversation we had with Jason Cook and Rodina Barrett that one day
Yeah.
after they got back from um,
Celebrating.
celebrating. Exactly, they were celebrating and they were in a good mood and they had a good time with us. So that's a fun one to go back and listen to. And then just some recency bias, but given that he just won his first graded stakes over the weekend at Saratoga with stress relief. Trainer Kenan LaRose, we had
Yeah.
him on right before he began his solo training career, taking over for Tom Amos, and he was a great guest. And it was just cool to have him on, before he had a starter in his name, because he's really hit the ground running in these first couple months that he's been out on his own. Already has a grade 2 win under his belt now with stress relief winning the Adirondacks. So that was a cool one that's fresh in my memory as well. Be cool to look back on
Well,
that, in a few years when he's a Brad Cox or a Chad Brown.
I'll add one real quick before CC goes, but Ashley Mayu, we got Ashley Mayu earlier on. So
Yes, yeah, that was a
I
really
went,
good one.
yeah, I went up to Fort Erie and she was there and stuff, and she was so nice and this and that, and she could not have been cooler, and she still is cool. She's cool AF. So Ashley Mayu's up there.
Mhm.
Everybody's great. I don't want to shortchange anybody, but that's one I would want to mention.
Yep.
Shelly Riley was cool for me because it took forever to find her. She's up in Oregon somewhere, and it just happened. I got lucky and found an email address for her. I wasn't sure if that was her or not. And she's told the story of Casual Lives, who ran second to Lil E.T. in a Kentucky
Mhm.
Derby. I think
Yeah.
93, I think, or 92 or 93. Anyway. And then just I thought this was notable. You talked about Kenan LaRose winning. We had Dr. Joel Paletti, who
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
owned the winner of that Saratoga Special
That's
this
right.
weekend, and
Mhm.
or not was it the
The
Adirondack?
Adirondack. Yep.
And we also had a co-owner of the winner of the Saratoga Special, Sherilyn Gasaway, uh,
Yeah.
earlier this year, in fact, and of course she co-owned Mystic Dan, Kentucky Derby winner. So yeah, we've had a lot of hits we've had Brad Cox, we've had Tom Amos, we've had Michael McCarthy. Brandon
Yeah.
got all those.
Yeah.
Uh, Richard
Charlie
Klein,
LaPresti. Charlie
Charlie,
LaPresti was really,
that was a really good one.
yeah.
Richard Klein, who won he was a good one. Had Brilliant Birdie over the weekend.
How
Winning
about
the
the Derby seminar when Brandon gave out what was it, like an 8-horse superfecta box with a bunch of horses he said he didn't like?
Yeah, he was in the same shape as Rodina Barrett and
Yeah,
Jason Cook was that day.
let's not
Like,
let's not talk
courage.
about that ever again.
And again, we all our friends too. Tony Kalo's great, and Kilroy and Kevin, and I mean Joe and Caitlin, and I can't remember everybody and stuff. They've been there frequent times and stuff, and of course Michelle, right? So we could go on and on.
All right, let's talk to our guest. He should be here any minute. All right, stop me if you've heard this before, but our guest needs no introduction, especially to this show. He's featured nearly every day on the simulcast shows for Churchill Downs Fairgrounds and Ellis Park. He does the morning work shows for the weeks leading into the Kentucky Derby. He's the morning line maker at Ellis Park, founder of Brilliant Racing, a Chicago Cubs fan, but most importantly, he is literally one of the nicest guys I know. He's a friend of the show, and I hope to one day pay back the generosity that he has shown us over the last several years, just not in cash. Joe Kristufek, welcome to episode number 250. This is the best way we could honor you. Welcome.
See, I think the way for me to get cash from you would be on the poker table.
Oh, boy. Well, I got news for you, pal. Are you even there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm waiting for the news you're going to deliver me.
Okay. The news will come later, okay, pal?
No,
All right.
it's great to be here. I appreciate the introduction. You guys don't owe me anything, man. As I've said many times at many different places and forums, I love what you guys do. I'm a fan of the show. I think horse racing needs a lot more of the kind of content that you guys bring. Not only the guests that you bring on, but the personalities and the love of the sport. So, if anything, shows like yours help keep me employed because we want to try to grow the fan base. And I don't think the industry as a whole does a good enough job of that. So I appreciate you guys more than you appreciate me. Trust me on that.
All right, we're gonna start this. Like at Thunder over Louisville, I don't know if they still do or not, but they have that big show at the end. They'll run fireworks all the way up until the very end. Then they'll have like a big 30-minute barrage of fireworks. That's what we're going to do here with my questioning. So I'm just going to ask two questions up front, and I'm going to turn it over to these guys. You make the morning line at Ellis Park. Is this the first? First of all, is this the first time you've ever done this?
I did Arlington Park for many years. I've done Ellis before it was owned by Churchill. I did Kentucky Downs for many years. I did Hawthorne back in the day as well. So, no, I've got a lot of experience doing it. And it's honestly one of my favorite things, favorite tests in racing to do. I consider it a challenge and I take it very seriously.
Well, you're great at it.
Yeah.
But my question is, so you're also basically a track handicapper. You make the selections for Ellis Park. Can you talk about your strategy or your, I guess your flow of work, how you make a morning line, and then turn around to handicap the races that you make the morning line for? Because I've always thought that would be difficult for me with the small brain. You've got the big brain. How do you not make your top selections the morning line favorites, if you catch my drift?
Yeah. How do you keep it separate? Is what you're saying? How do you keep
Well,
these two separate identities?
they're two different jobs, first of all. And I honestly think that the tight deadlines I have on the morning line help me keep these two jobs separate because anyone, and you guys have all been on the air with me recently at Alice. Geoff has done, Turfway over the winter. We all take this very seriously. I can't speak for everybody, but on a normal card, I put 3 hours worth of preparation into it from watching replays. I would say even more than that. 3, 4 hours per card, watching replays, watching workouts, researching pedigrees, and everything that goes into that. I don't have time with the deadlines to do all that work before I make a morning line. So the races you're going to miss most on are going to be the 2-year-old races because if I watched every workout and researched every pedigree, maybe some of those lines would be a little bit different and the handicapping process would be a little bit different. When you're making the morning line, you're going based on speed figures first and foremost, because that's what most people handicap by. Connections, class.
Yeah.
You're basically paper handicapping when you're doing the morning line, and you're trying to figure out how the public is going to bet the race versus when you're handicapping for yourself, you're doing all that other legwork. You're doing the pedigree work. You're doing the replay work. You're doing the track bias work. You're doing everything else that is involved with truly digging deep and handicapping a card the way you're supposed to before you bet. So hopefully that's a good enough answer. It's just two different jobs and two different mindsets.
Okay. The other night at Ellis, one of you all asked Joe what you would do.
It was me, yeah.
It was you, and you said writing screenplays. I thought that was very, very, very interesting. Tell us about that. Have you written a screenplay before? Or what piqued your interest in that? Are you talking about screenplays for movies or TV shows or what?
Well, yeah, Alan asked what I would do if I wasn't a horse racing analyst. The first thing I pursued when I was younger or thought I wanted to pursue would be being a play-by-play announcer for sports, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, whatever. That would be one job I would consider doing. Managing a band. I've always been very, very big into music. Managing a band, managing a venue, bringing bands to my venue, owning a venue, that sort of scenario, because I'm a big lover of music and more so under the radar music. But when I talk about writing screenplays, whether it be for a movie or even more so like a TV show for HBO or Apple TV, or there's just so many original shows out there now. And quite honestly, and I've said this for years, and I know other people have as well, you could come up with a great sitcom centered around horse racing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have met so many characters in this game, from horse players to racing officials to jockeys to trainers to fans to backstretch workers. You could really come up with a tremendous show centered around horse racing with all those different characters and all those different scenarios. And quite honestly, a lot of it would be based on true stories. We've seen a lot of crazy things in this game over the years.
I'll tell you I'll give you my, I've talked about this on the show before. This is my synopsis of an HBO series of a guy that gets famous for breaking news on Twitter. And in the meantime, he's a degenerate gambler that sells pieces of pick six tickets to his friends.
Yeah.
And of course, none of them ever hit. So he uses that money that he fools his friends out of to gamble more. And then one day he hits the biggest one, like $500,000. And then obviously he can't pay it off. And then that's where the story begins. And then you work your way back from there, or you work your way forward from there. So
That would never happen, would it?
sometimes horse racing is better in real life, though. So, all right.
Well, I think your character and your story could be part of, the overall show that I'm talking about. That could be a whole season in of itself.
Right.
Yeah, like The Wire. Like The Wire did different things for different seasons. They took a topic each. There, you got me thinking, Joe. Then one season needs to be Cowboy Jones, right, or TPT, maybe. Okay.
What was the show back 20 years ago? Luck. Remember Luck? Yeah, that was pretty good. It was okay at times, and sometimes it was really good. I thought that was a pretty decent show back in the day. But,
yeah, that only made 2 seasons. Gary Stevens was on that show. He did a tremendous job, and I remember talking to Gary at the Preakness right after they pulled the plug on that show, and he was just so disappointed. I mean, that show, they had planned on that show going, 5, 6 at least seasons moving forward. Obviously, there was an unfortunate accident with a horse or two that was involved in the filming of the show where they felt obligated to pull the plug on it. And yeah, that was a shame. I thought that was a very good show. I thought it was as close to real life, what happens behind the scenes in horse racing, than anything else, honestly, that's ever been done.
right. Yeah. Al Pacino was in it.
Dustin Hoffman was Dustin Hoffman.
Did I say? Yeah, not Al Pacino. Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing.
I get those two guys confused.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, I'm going to turn it over to these guys, and then we'll come back with viewer questions, Joe.
Oh dear.
Viewer questions. So get ready.
Can I ask something real quick, Geoff? You care if I ask something?
Go
Geoff?
right ahead, Alan. Kick it off for us.
Yeah, one of your big things, Joe. I think people they may not know this, but one of your not pet projects, passion projects is about fan development. Is about growing the game, and you have a lot of ideas. You have a lot of ideas. If we could appoint someone to be that nationwide, you would be the guy I would recommend. This is your floor. This is your opportunity to throw out some of those ideas that you think that have been rolling around in that Chicago head of yours.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think first and foremost, every racetrack in the country, especially the larger racetracks, the industry leaders, so to speak, should have a director of fan development. Now, what that is a conduit to all the other departments at the racetrack. So every racetrack has a marketing department, and I've run into one marketing person in my entire career in horse racing that actually understood and loved the game.
Mm-hmm.
So your marketing person is important because they bring fresh ideas outside of horse racing. That is important because there's still a social aspect to the game.
I agree 100%. Yeah, go
There's
ahead.
still a social aspect to the venue. There are other activities that happen at the racetrack during the racing season, during the off season. A director of marketing and a marketing department is very important. Director of fan development is something completely different. It's how do we develop the fan base? How do we get people that are somewhat interested in horse racing to truly understand the game? Because I really believe in any aspect of life, with knowledge comes interest. So if you all of a sudden as a kid start liking baseball, the more you understand about the statistics, how it works, it's gotten very complicated these days with launch
Yeah.
angles and exit velocities and all that stuff. But just taking it to strip it down to the foundation of the sport, uh, same with football, same with basketball, point guard, shooting guard, center, forward, screens. Um, there's so many different aspects of every sport that I think the more you understand about it and the more knowledge you have about it, the more you're going to consume it. Whether you're paying for subscriptions of those sports, you're buying jerseys, you're attending games regularly, you're more invested in it. Now, horse racing has a lot of people that are just in it for the social aspect. There's nothing wrong with it. But we need to create more CCs, more Allens, more Geoffs. And I have an idea about how all of you got involved in the game. I didn't grow up in horse racing. I didn't grow up going to the racetrack. You get exposed to it in a certain way. And then if you have a liking to what you see and hear and watch and gamble on, then somebody's got to water that seed. And if you don't have a mentor, there's nobody to water that seed. And that's where I think the industry as a whole fails in a lot of respects, because people walk in and out of the racetrack every day, and they walk in and they walk out, and they didn't learn any more than they knew before they walked in the door as they're walking out the door. And that's just a fail on the industry. It's a complicated game. People look at the program and it looks like another language to people. But if you give them a 20-minute how to read the program lesson, you're at least giving them a foundation to be able to ask questions and be able to learn moving forward. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about this topic for hours. And it's been a frustration my whole career. I've done a lot of hands-on education. Being on TV, I try to educate people every day, because you're talking to the people that know as much as we do, but you're also talking to people that are new at horse racing, and you try to, appeal to both different audiences. But I think a director of fan development at a racetrack could work with marketing, they could work with social media, they could work with TV, they could work with the online team, and just preach a common message to everybody. Hey, if you want to learn more about horse racing, these are some of the outlets that you can reference.
Off the top of my head, I would say maybe Churchill or some of these other places could make YouTube videos explaining how to tackle something as seemingly insurmountable as the daily racing form of the program. And then at the racetrack, maybe during the races on third B, when all those people are out there, maybe promote that YouTube channel that they would be doing. That just off the top of my head as we're talking, because I'm thinking like when a kid with the baseball cards, a program of racing form is intimidating. It certainly is. But a baseball card was hieroglyphics until you got the interest level to figure out how to read it, right? So you've got to break down that wall, right? That's the first thing, and then you got to build upon it. Is what I'm getting from you in that regard, right?
And I think I'm a big believer in this too. You're either born with gamble in your blood or you're not. My mom and dad couldn't stand to lose $2. And there are just a lot of people that aren't into gambling. But the great part about that, as far as horse racing goes, you could still go to the track and have a great time and barely gamble on the races, because it's social. People love animals, people love horses, people love the atmosphere. But this game is driven by handle. So if you are born with gamble in your blood, this is the greatest gambling sport. I know there's a lot of flaws in horse racing. We can, do an entire another show about that. But the essence of it, parimutuel handle, you're gambling against the guys or gals standing next to you and trying to figure out the puzzle. And not only if you get it right, you get paid for it, but it's also an ego thing about being right. Everybody wants to be right. You bet on a sporting event, you were right. You did this, you did that. It's an ego thing. And at the same time, you can go to a day at the races, come with $100, leave with 500. You can't do that going to the movies. You can't do that going bowling unless you find money on the ground. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's just the greatest game that not enough people are exposed to begin with. And the people that are exposed that want to learn more, I don't think have the outlets that they should have in order to learn. I had a mentor. I used to go to the OTB on Jackson Street when I was going to college, right across the street from the Sears Tower. And I used to go in there and gamble on the races. And I had a mentor. His name was Angelo. He's about maybe 15 years older than me. And he would tell me, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how you're handicapping wrong. And through him and through his mentorship, I learned by watching races and gambling on races and understanding the results of why things happened. There's a lot more people besides just the four of us and a lot of the other people we know that would be fascinated by horse racing if they got the proper exposure to it.
Yeah, I agree. I was one of the things that's always drawn me to it is the math and the theory and the fact that you can and the challenge. I like the challenge of taking a little bit of money and maybe winning a lot of money, right? That's always and that's a thing that I like about it, and I'm sure other people would too. I'd also add that sometimes I think that some of the people who are really involved in the wagering aspect, they have a tendency to frown upon and think that you don't need the people who are just there for the social time. I say we should be all welcoming personally. I mean, I understand this and that. I understand how people get that concept, but I think you should be welcoming to the people who, the hardcore people and the casual folks. But that's just me. So I'm glad you kind of touched on that.
Well,
Uh,
there are people too, Alan, that preach about building proper tickets and doing this and doing that. You got to teach somebody how to crawl, then
yes.
how to walk before they can run, before they can sprint. You got to start with the basics. You can't just throw, here's a pick five. Let somebody learn how to have some success betting win, place, and show, and then maybe a dollar exacta and build them up to the point where they understand it and have some success before you start throwing all these other complicated theories at people.
Boy, you're 100%. I'm 100% agree with you there. That's the marathon. You're trained. That's the 26-mile marathon. You got to be able to do the 100-yard dash first and build yourself up, right? I completely agree. I do think there's a focus too much on pick fives and the really home run tickets and stuff. But but that's because I know a little bit more or whatever. But I do wish we did a little bit more of the basics, the building blocks that you're talking about. But that's just my opinion. I don't want to touch too long on you because I'm going to give a Geoff a shot. But one thing that we always talk about, that I always tell you about, is that you are the ultimate scoring point guard at the desk. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you've had us on recently, right? You're doing your best to make us doofuses look like we know what we're doing or whatever. But even with the pros, the Kilroys, the Caitlins, the Kalos, you do a really good job of feeding those guys, not just us, but the guys who really know what they're talking about, feeding them while still educating and stuff. What's the trick to that to be able to make the other guy look good and still keep your head organized, which I find a little bit amazing being on the desk with you.
I have no training whatsoever in television. When I first started doing this, and I always tell people because I brought a lot of people along in this game over the years, giving people shots. I know Geoff is one great example
Yes.
of somebody that's really grown in this game, through some mentorship and, you know, hard work is where it comes from. But I just want people, when I'm sitting at that desk, whoever's sitting next to me, the bottom line is we're fans. I'm not a professional broadcaster. I think I've gotten pretty good at this gig over the years, whether it be the point guard, the promoter, um, the educator, all these different roles that you need to take on to do a good job. But when Tony and I are at the desk, or, you and I, Alan, or Geoff, Cece, Kevin, Caitlin, anybody that I've worked with over the years, we're just fans of the sport, and we're people that are betting on the races just like you are. We have to put in a lot of work to every card that we broadcast because we want to be able to, tell people things that they don't already know, educate along the way. Anybody can go on the air and mail it in, and there's a lot of people in this job that do that.
Yes, there
And
are.
there are people like us that can obviously see right through that. You could tell who puts the work in and who doesn't put the work in. And you're not going to always have great results. I go into slumps. There are times that I see the ball great. And as the point guard, you want to be able to set that analyst up. You want to be able to set that reporter up, especially when they want to talk about their top selections. Let them give the information. And then if you have something to add on to what they say, then you can do that. I've got a top pick. I want to give as much information as I can as to why I like that horse or why I like this long shot. So I'm an analyst at the same time that I'm the point guard. And that's why I think you call me a scoring point guard, because I'm going to give analysts, you could just be the host and just, be a point guard and not have your own opinion, which is also fine. But, I'd rather be the analyst, quite honestly, because I think that is a more fun job.
Yeah.
But I also think I play point guard pretty well. So I like being the person to set other people up.
So I'll give it to Geoff, but you're the double-double guy, right? You don't just dish out 11 assists a game and score 2 points. You like to dish out 16 points and 12 assists. You like to double it up, right? Get from both angles.
I guess the best comparison would be Derrick Rose.
Okay, yeah, yes. John Calipari was Derrick Rose very well, so yes. All right, Geoff.
Yeah, you knew that Chicago would come out sooner or later for Joe. I know Derrick Rose, one of his favorite basketball players of all time for sure. But Joe, awesome having you on, man. I know you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I think your horse racing origin story is just really cool. As someone who wasn't born into the sport and you just grinded your way to where you are today, can you just kind of give a short overview of like what got you interested in racing and your journey to where you are now?
So when I was a kid, I always loved baseball. My grandpa, my mom, God rest her soul, it was just part of our family. Watching games on the couch with my grandpa and my family, and I just always loved baseball. So I was 6 years old collecting baseball cards, loving the statistics, just loving the game. Played Little League, played baseball fairly competitively into my teens. And it's a statistical based sport, but it's also a physical sport. And there's also a lot of creativity in scouting baseball or any other sport. I think being a handicapper for horse racing is like being a scout. I mean, you're scouting horses, your point of comparison, strength of fields, what you're seeing visually, how these horses travel, etc. So I think having a mind that gravitated to statistics, but also at the same time gravitated to the creativity of watching the athlete is what got me involved in racing. But I'm a perfect example. If I didn't get a job at the Sears Tower in downtown Chicago while I was going to Columbia College, which is also in downtown Chicago, and happened to be right across the street from the Jackson Street OTB, the first off-track betting parlor to ever open in the state of Illinois. When you're in college, you're always looking for somewhere to go between classes, or when you're working 30 hours a week and then you're going to school, or lunchtime, you're always looking for somewhere to go. And I just started going into the Jackson Street OTB, and I got fascinated by horse racing because I was born with gamble in my blood. I was betting on sports when I was in high school and I was in college. And I always tell people about the epiphany I had. I looked up at the TV screen one day. Tony Kobitz was in a suit and tie, and he was talking about the races, giving his picks. And I just had this thought come into my head. I'm like, wait a minute. They pay that guy to do that?
Right.
That's what I want to do. And
Best job ever, right?
Every assignment I wrote for school was about horse racing, learning about horse racing. Got my foot in the door at Arlington Park as a green coat, a gold coat, working in customer service, bugging Phil Georgieff and Jerry Galatano and Dave Zenner and Dave Sirico and all these people that worked in the media every day to give me a shot. And Dave Zenner gave me my first shot at the Hawthorne. Phil Georgieff's last year calling the races. And if you prove yourself and you do a good job in horse racing, and times are obviously a lot different now than they were back then, but I proved myself pretty quickly and was able to get on TV and start doing all these different jobs. And, the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's I think it's an inspiring story, and anybody out there who, has that same kind of revelation and just passion and love for the game, just know that just because you weren't born into horse racing doesn't mean that you can't get involved in the sport like somebody like you. And I mean, you've helped me do that as well personally. My family wasn't in horse racing whatsoever. So, getting to know you and talking about that mentorship and how important that is. I mean, if you can just find somebody good to latch onto and you're willing to work hard, man, it's definitely possible. So it's pretty awesome to hear the before and after there. As far as your current job, what is your favorite part of the job? I know you love your job, but what's your very favorite part?
Honestly, Geoff, I think it goes back to the mentorship at this point of
Uh-huh.
my career. I could pull so many names of people that I've helped get their start in horse racing. Um, when I hired Kevin Kilroy, he had no experience in horse racing, none. He was a fan.
Yep.
He was a writer and he
A
was
writer.
passionate
Yeah.
about it.
Uh-huh.
And you too, like you came to me at one point, I knew you through Brilliant Racing and I said, Geoff, get your name out there, get a name on Twitter, do a podcast, do a YouTube channel, do a blog, interact with other people that love horse racing because in horse racing, we're all one big degenerate family.
Yep. Exactly.
Degenerate, maybe as a strong word, dysfunctional is probably a better word. But from the handicappers to the betters to the jockeys, the trainers, this game is built on hope, whether you're gambling or whether you're owning horses or riding horses or whatever you're doing. And we all have that in common. So I think education has always been important to me. Um, Obviously, the ego of making good picks and giving good information. But at this point, I really love the mentorship and being able to help people develop and bring younger people into the game that are going to love it and push it forward because we all know right now there's a lot of questions about the future of horse racing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a great game, and I care so much about it still, and I'm still passionate about it, not only from, the full-time job aspect, but as you well know too, brilliant racing and owning horses and experiencing the game from that aspect too. So um, I would just think all of it. I mean, the education and the mentorship probably first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely get how that would be rewarding. I mean, just even in a small version of that, if I'm at the track and, there's a family there who it's their first time there and they're trying to figure out the program, I'm standing next to them and just be like, hey, can I show you a couple things? And then you talk to them for 10 minutes and then all of a sudden, a light bulb kind of turns on and then they have such a better experience. That even that little thing is very rewarding. So I can see on a macro level how cool that would be. You talked about brilliant racing, and that was definitely on my list to talk to you about because that's what made me go from a horse racing fan to being absolutely obsessed with the game when I became involved with brilliant racing. What gave you and the managing partners the idea to start that partnership?
I've owned horses for a lot longer than before Brilliant Racing started. I used to own horses with Steve Dahl, who's a legendary disc jockey in Chicago. A lot of people are familiar with the Disco Demolition at Comiskey Park back in the day, where the White Sox had to actually forfeit a game because they blew up a bunch of disco records on the
I
field.
remember. I
Yeah.
remember.
Steve Dahl was the one that was behind that.
Oh
So
God.
I had a TV show back in Chicago called Horsing Around TV, and we bought our first horse, Secret Command, and then pushed that forward to own horses with Steve. And he would name the horses on his radio show. He would have a poll with all the listeners. The first horse we ever had with Steve was a horse called Steve Biscuit. And that's when Seabiscuit was popular. So the horse's name was Steve Biscuit. They used to play all the races live on the radio. We used to cover those horses on my TV show. And that eventually faded away. And then my move from Chicago to Kentucky, I always wanted to get back into the horse racing game, and I always wanted to get a lot of other people involved in it. So the concept of Brilliant Racing came up. You pay a one-time fee, you get involved in 3 or 4 different horses. There's no bills for the first year, and you just enjoy the journey. And Geoff, you can speak firsthand to this. Owning horses and knowing what goes on behind the scenes with the condition book and the injuries and the highs and the lows, and understanding why horses are in certain races or why trainers make the decisions that they do about distances and surfaces, et cetera, et cetera. Owning horses helps make you become a better handicapper.
Oh, absolutely. Makes you become a better handicapper, gives you that appreciation for what it takes just to get a horse to the race. But yeah, as you said, just the understanding of that decision-making process, why a horse is placed where they are, layoff lines, just everything. It absolutely does make you a better handicapper as well. I know our group is we're all excited because there's a new Brilliant Racing ship partnership coming up on the horizon here. For any people that are interested in getting into ownership, can you talk a little bit about how to get into contact and kind of what to expect there? You talked about how it's just the one-time fee up front, which is great. That's the thing that really drew me to it originally.
Love when you guys had Kyle McGinty on from Blackout Racing,
Yeah.
because he and that group do a very creative job of getting people involved in the game, tying it in with the bourbon, and just making it about the experience and making it affordable. Now you've got groups like My Racehorse. That's not ownership, that's a club. Okay, when you have a real ownership group, if there's bills, those bills got to be paid. This isn't, if there's a profit to be had, you're going to make a profit. You're involved in the actual ownership, real ownership of the horse. The Churchill Downs Racing Club is phenomenal, but they don't bill themselves as ownership. They bill themselves as a club. But
Right.
we've gotten a lot of people through the Churchill Downs Racing Club to move on to real ownership. Groups like Brilliant Racing, like Blackout Racing, like so many different groups that are out there. Anybody, Geoff, can get involved in thoroughbred ownership. That's another untapped market where I think people need to have a better idea about how to go about it, that it is possible. And the most important thing is to get involved with people that you trust.
Right.
How many different friendships have we made through Brilliant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lifelong friendships for sure. It's an absolute family for sure.
It's a family. So many different friendships that you make, so many different great experiences that you have, way more lows than highs.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's in this game will tell you, you have so many lows that when you actually have a high, you can't even explain it. Some of my best memories in recent years are of winning horse races.
Yeah.
Winning at Churchill Downs with Eskin for it, or Spider Woman, or winning stakes races with Yes It's Ginger.
Mm-hmm. First
Horses
Keeneland win with Johnny. Yeah, that was
Johnny's Fireball at Keeneland,
Yeah.
when we thought we might get taken down.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many great memories. And you're when you're getting in an ownership group for a limited investment, so to speak, you cannot buy those experiences. So even if that group lasts 2 or 3 years and you don't get any money back at the end of it because the partnership dissolves, or maybe you get half your original investment back, you cannot pay for those experiences.
Yeah, no, and
Those
I
come
mentioned this
organically.
Yeah, when we talked to Kyle too, I mean, it's just you talked about how many lows there are in the game, but how it makes the highs even higher. And I mean, I will tell anybody that will listen, seeing a horse that you own coming down the stretch at your one of your home tracks with a chance to win, it's the literal best feeling in the world.
Well,
There's
Geoff,
nothing else that can touch
you
it.
have been my you've stood next to me. It's an out of body experience.
It is. It
When I
really
start
is.
going to the
I've
whip and I'm
taken some
strapping
abuse
you on
from your program once or twice.
Oh yeah, right. It's an out of body experience, and You can't put a price on it. You just can't, especially when you go back to the barn and actually have a relationship with the horse. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people in this game that are just gamblers. They don't care about going back to the barn and having a relationship with the horse. When I have a relationship with the horse, which I do with all of mine, and they walk into that paddock and I know that horse personally, it's like watching your kid play Little League. It
Yeah.
really is. Or watching them play soccer. It's like you're being represented by your kid. And it's soccer moms, baseball dads, they will tell you what a great feeling it is to watch your son compete. Watching your horse compete is a very similar experience.
Yeah, 100%. It really is kind of indescribable until you do it, but it's something that any true, real, passionate horse racing fan should try. And it really, with these kind of things, with these partnerships, it really is more affordable than people think. So, one of the best decisions I've ever made was getting to be a part of that for sure. But I'm going to kick it back over to CC now because I know he's got some rapid fire questions for you, and
Oh
I'm
boy.
interested to hear what they are. So take it
Hold,
away,
hold on,
CC.
hold on. Let me fasten my seatbelt over here.
Uh-huh.
All right, Joe, we're going to end 250 with a bang. Are you fully engaged?
And then some.
Here we go. Okay. We're calling this segment Listener Questions. Our first listener is named Sack. She's from Louisville, Kentucky. We may be aware of her. I think she may have done a pod with us a few years ago.
She might have been first.
She was near the first at
First or
least.
second, yeah.
Joe, first of all, she says hello. If your
Hello,
life,
Sack.
hello, Sack. If your life had a walk-up song every time you entered a room, what would it be?
Ooh.
Well, what was that? You guys did an episode not too long ago with Jenny Doyle where you were talking about a bunch of songs. I forget exactly what that applied to. It was this past winter. You remember what I'm talking about?
Not rips.
I know we did best love songs of all time at one
Yeah,
point.
maybe it was that.
Valentine's Day. Yeah.
Valentine's Day. There it is. That's what I'm referencing. So a walk-up song like the baseball players have or the jockeys used to have when they came in the winner's circle. Most of the music I listen to, nobody on this pod is gonna know the songs that I talk about, but I can think of two, and maybe you can go back and check them out if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about. I would say one would be "Let's Go" by Cartel, which is a very high energy song, kind of indie alternative, pop punk kind of music, which is mostly what I listen to. So I'd say "Let's Go" by Cartel, or I would say a Gaslight Anthem song, probably from their first album. I would say "I Could Have Been a Contender." And again, it's just very upbeat music. It's inspiring. Let's go. You can kind of, think about and understand what that song is probably about just by listening to the title. But yeah, that's a great question, and those would be the two that would come off the top of my head.
May I interject real quick? We had the girl at the Ellis, she played a walk-up song for me when I went on there. Rock of Ages by Def Leppard. So I've had my walk-up song too. I think Geoff might have had one too. I can't remember.
I don't know what mine was, if so, but hey, I'll take it, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Next question. Actually, a series of questions. This is from Jerry from Mayberry, North Carolina.
Yes.
First question, how does your ROI on your handicapping selections compare to the 10-year treasury return?
That sounds like Jerry.
Well, I would have to have a better idea of the 10-year treasury return, but I would guess my ROI would probably be significantly less than that. I can tell you over many years at Arlington, I had over a $2 ROI on several occasions over a long career working there. This game has gotten tougher and tougher and tougher with all the information that everybody has at their disposal without having to put all the work in.
Yeah.
And then having to pick every race every day too, that's going to hurt your ROI because I could easily go on the air and say, I wouldn't bet this race with your money. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I would say over many years, my ROI is probably between $1.70 and $1.80. And I think it's important for everybody that does our job to reveal their ROI and reveal their stats.
100.
And one meet it might not be great. The next meet it might be fantastic. The next meet it might be average. I think I'm like close to $1.70 for this current Ellis meet, but that's just top pick selections too. The information you give to people to let them make their own decisions, or talking about a horse that they might not be thinking about including in their tickets, that's the best compliment I can get. When they say, I saw you like this horse, I used that horse, I wasn't going to, and I cashed. That's the best compliment you can get from somebody that's paying attention. I think I built a pretty good reputation over a lot of years of doing this.
What handicapping angle do you find most successful evaluating 2-year-old maiden special weight races?
Well, going against the steam, I would say I really enjoy when horses stretch out from sprints to routes. Had a lot of success, especially last year, watching Ellis Park turf races going into Kentucky Downs and finding some sneaky trips, some sneaky gallop outs. I'm not a fan of 2-year-old racing in April, May, June. Once we start to get into July and August, and those horses have a little bit of experience, or they're starting to stretch out on the turf and the dirt, and you can get a little bit more of a point of comparison, I enjoy those races a lot more, and I'm more inclined to bet on those. But man, if you're just watching workouts, or you're just watching for pedigrees, or you're just watching for sales prices, you can get sucked in on horses that aren't going to provide the value you should be looking for.
Our next question is from Lance from near Knoxville, Tennessee. Go Vols. Joe, what's the most bizarre dream you've ever had?
I have two reoccurring nightmares. One is I feel a tooth in my mouth and it's loose, and then they all get loose and all my teeth fall out.
Wow.
My second one is, I doubt Steve Asmussen's listening to this podcast, but I have a reoccurring dream that Steve is a college teacher of mine. I haven't been showing up to class, and I've got a final that I haven't studied for that's coming up the next day that I have absolutely no chance of passing, and I haven't been going to class to begin with, so I'm definitely going to get a failing grade or an incomplete when I can't afford to do so. So those are two reoccurring nightmares that I have often enough. We'll just leave it at that.
That's horrifying. Next question from Trey from between Lexington and Richmond, Kentucky. Did you have a title in your high school yearbook? Did you earn a title in your high school yearbook?
Bookie.
Bookie?
My senior year of high school, I didn't even carry books with me to class. I had to take 3 classes through the mail just to graduate. I'm an Illinois scholar, Illinois State scholar, all honors classes. My senior year of high school, I knew I was going to Columbia College downtown Chicago. You don't need any sort of qualifications to get in, but a high school diploma or a GED. It's an art school. So my senior year of high school, I wasn't aspiring to get into a school. So I kind of just blew it off. And my job, my senior year of high school, was to run the football pool. For the students, for the teachers, I had a lot of teachers in there They were all worried about me making sure I got the football pool out on time. There were no computers back then. You weren't like I had to do all this shit by hand. So
Oh
yeah,
God.
and I don't
Jesus.
believe me. I went back to school years later after I got involved in the horse racing industry. None of my former teachers were surprised what I wound up doing for a living.
Next question from Jenny from Louisville, Kentucky. Joe, after watching thousands of races, what's the dumbest reason you've ever talked yourself into liking a horse?
Wow. I would say that the horses that I used to really get trapped by were the ones that closed well in cheaper races. They're the kind of horses that'll tease you into thinking they can run when there's no better weapon in horse racing than early speed and being able to learn how to ration that speed. These plotting horses that come from behind that, run second and third a lot, maybe they have troubled trips. Those are the kind of horses within a category that I would deem myself being stupid for backing time and time again. Um, Other than that, I don't know. I mean, people have their loyalties to certain horses that they've done well on in the past. Tony Kalo is still fits himself in that category, and I think I used to be that way a lot more when I was younger. I would say not following hunch plays sometimes. There are hunch plays that are right in front of you that even if you just threw a couple bucks on them, oftentimes more often than you would think, those hunch plays come in. So I would think there's a lot of different potential answers to that, but no real good one.
And finally, we're going to close things out with Bill from near Georgetown, Kentucky. I don't know, many people may know Bill. He sometimes runs a Spaces on Twitter on Thursday night, friend of the
Oh
show.
boy.
Power rank Churchill Downs handicappers and explain why Caitlin
Oh
Free is
man,
number
Oh
one.
I
man.
can't do this.
All right, don't read that one. Or don't do that one. Uh,
I can tell you handicappers outside of Churchill Downs whose opinion I respect.
That's good. Do that. I want to hear that personally.
I mean, I definitely respect Marcus Hirsch. I handicap with him for a lot of years in Chicago. I think he's handicaps races a lot like me. He's very creative. He will fish for prices even more often than I do. Brian Nato, who I'm a counterpart with, who does the TV at Gulfstream, he's very opinionated, and sometimes he can really be oversold on his own opinions and not be willing to show a little bit of leeway and turn himself over to the other side. But a lot of times his initial opinions are very good. I can think of some other ones but off the top of my head, if you do this job, other people's opinions on your circuit, you're probably not going to listen to as much. But other circuits, if I'm looking for information, those are two people whose opinions I respect for sure.
all right, I can't read that one. I can't read that one.
Now you know why I don't want to do his spaces, right? Actually, I'm going to do his spaces one of these days.
Name a podcast worse
I'll
than
be ready for it.
name a podcast worse than the auxiliary gate. That was mean.
That should be easy. That should be.
Don't answer that. Don't answer. Okay.
That's gonna be.
Why are you too scared to come to Turfway Park?
He's at the fairgrounds all year.
That is a long drive from New Orleans to the Turfway.
Is CJ Johnson a big time owner? All right. All right. We're drifting over too much into his show. All right. I'm shutting that down. That got out of hand quick.
DJ and I go back a long way, man. Him and his dad were running Kentucky Downs when I was doing the line and doing TV handicapping there. And I got a lot of great memories of the old Kentucky Downs and a lot of great memories of the new Kentucky Downs, too. As you guys well know, we look forward to that every year.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's getting late. We all have somewhere to be, so I'm going to shut this thing down. Uh, Joe, Kristufek, you're the best. I appreciate you doing this. We all appreciate you.
Yes,
I
sir.
couldn't think of a better guest for number 250. Hopefully we'll have you for 300, 350, 400, 450, and 500. But you can catch Joe, of course, this weekend on Ellis Park TV, handing out winners. And like I said, Joe, good luck to you, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, man. You guys just keep doing what you're doing. I love the under the radar guests, the people that I don't know a lot about that get to show their personalities and share their passions and horse racing because that's what it's all about.
All right. And on that note, we'll put a bow on this one. Episode number 250. Of course, we want to thank Joe Kristufek. We want to thank Alan Schneider, Geoff Riggs, and Cast of Thousands. In the words of Jerry Romans, we're not happy until you're not happy. Good night.